Hello.
Hello. We're the Mozambique Action Team. We're just going to start off by introducing ourselves before we let you know what we've been doing over the past year. So I'm Alana, I'm 18, I'm from Ipswich, and I go to Colchester Road Baptist Church.
I'm Joel, I'm from Union Baptist Church, High Wycombe, and I'm 18 as well.
I'm Emily, I am from Swansea in Wales, and I am 19 years old, and I go to Baglan Community Church.
Hi, I'm George, I'm 18, I'm from Essex, and I go to Raleigh Baptist Church.
So we've just done a gap year with a Christian organisation called BMS. Every year they send out a group of 18 to 24-year-olds to different countries. This year they sent 7 teams out and we were one of them, so we went to Mozambique. The year started with a month's training in Birmingham, so we were at the BMS centre for that, and then we had 6 months overseas. Unfortunately, our tour, which was meant to be a 2-month tour going around the UK to different churches, has been cancelled due to the current pandemic.
So a bit about training. We had a month of training in Birmingham in the centre called IMC. One of the main parts of training was at a Christian activity centre in Wales called Minadon. We can't tell you much about it, but we can say that there was a lot of team building that we did there. We got pushed to our limits and pushed out of our comfort zones a lot while we were there. But it ended up being really good fun. I really enjoyed it, and it helped teach us a lot about each other, and yeah, it really just tested us in ways that we weren't expected to be tested, but we can't tell you anymore, so there we go.
Another aspect of training, despite all the learning we did, was our downtime. One of the most iconic things would be our trips to Sainsbury's, or also iconically known as Sainos, a classic action team opportunity. It was an opportunity to get outside. It hosted a number of adventures and silly stories, deep chats. Also, a lot of action team was buying slippers and a lot of much needed chocolate. It was, for action teams, it's like the land of milk and honey.
So one of the other main things that we did whilst at training were the meetings in the chapel. So this consisted of many different things, like learning a bit more about how to grow in your faith, but also learning things about how to cope whilst being overseas, and like what sort of things we'll be doing, what sort of things, like if we're teaching, how to actually do that. So they were really helpful, and they helped us to prepare for things like our training church. So during training, we went to a church, what was it called? Rohi. So it was only 2 minutes away from where we were staying. But we went there for, was it 1 weekend or 2 weekends? 2 weekends. And yeah, so the first weekend was a bit more chilled out, just getting to know the church. And then the second one was actually getting involved, doing the sermon, and yeah, just getting involved with the youth groups there. And yeah, kind of blending in a bit, I guess.
So we also had time to just spend getting to know each other as a team. I think one of the main ones was team devotions every morning, which was a good opportunity to study the Bible together and just learn about each other on a deeper level, which was always really lovely. And then we also did first aid training, well, Joel and Alana did. Thankfully, they never had to use it, I don't think, while being overseas. Did you?
I can remember.
And then myself and Emily, Emily already knew how to cook, but that was all a laugh. And then we also did many things, but one thing that jumps to mind was all of us got involved with going around Sainsbury's, asking members of the public if we can have a photo with them looking quite scared and confused. Stuff like that we did together and made us have a laugh.
So my personal highlight from training was being able to be with all the other teams. So there were 26 of us in total, and we just got to like get alongside each other, get to know each other, and build friendships with all of the other action teamers, and as well as actually being a team together, because I was the one that was at a different encounter weekend to the other three, so I hadn't actually met them all properly, and it was really nice being able to be a team for this time properly. The challenge I found when we were out training was adjusting to living in a close proximity with others, because like at home I have my own bedroom, but in training it was like even more intensified because me and Alana shared with like 2 other people, so it was just like crazy, but a good thing to learn is to share rooms with.
Yeah, for me, a highlight would have to be Minadon. I can't really say much about it. It was just one big adventure, and I loved it.
What was your challenge?
Oh, challenge. Oh, yeah. I to be honest, I didn't particularly have any challenges at training. I don't think. Training was just one big highlight for me of the whole year.
I'd say that my highlight was the human clue day we did. So throughout the whole of training, one of the other action teamers set up a human clue day, which was really fun and exciting. You didn't know whether you were going to be caught or not. I was caught in the worst way possible. Wasn't expecting it, but you know, I'll forgive and forget. I think a challenging point for me was the fact that we did all the training together. So all the meetings in the chapels, they tried to like make it so they were like for all of us, but I found it quite challenging because each team does different things, so some things would only apply to some teams and not others, so I think I found that quite difficult to balance.
A highlight from mine would just be, again, getting to know everyone and seeing new faces and learning about each other and just creating new friendships with everyone, just having a laugh and feeling comfortable all the time is such a nice feeling. A challenge, I would say. I wouldn't say there's hardly any challenge, but if I had to pick one, it would definitely be, I think for me, planning a sermon for the first time. That was quite hard. Not knowing what to write, but team got me through and it went well.
So after training, I'm pretty sure most of you probably know that we ended up going to Portugal. So we were in Portugal for about a month and a half before going to Mozambique. So the reason that we went to Portugal in the beginning was due to the elections that were taking place in Mozambique. It wasn't really, just in case it might not have been safe for us to be there, so BMS chose to send us to Portugal. But although that was like unexpected, if there weren't elections, we still would have ended up in Mozambique straight away in October anyway, because we didn't have our visas until the end of October, beginning of November, I think it was. So what I learned from that was that it was all in God's plan anyway. We still had the experience of going overseas, even though it wasn't our final destination. We got that experience. We stayed in a small town called Morale. It was quite ghosty, if that's the correct terminology. There wasn't much to do there. There weren't very many people. We saw the same people every single day. There wasn't even like a main supermarket in Morale, so we would have to take we would have to go in the car to get to a supermarket, which is very different for all of us compared to like at home life. But it was a good experience to have. But yeah, there was a really nice lake nearby that we loved going to and spending time there, having some devotions and just doing something.
Yeah. So initially, the reason we were in Portugal was to stay away from the elections. We had time. We were like, so we were there to learn Portuguese and use what initially was 4 weeks to learn a bit of the language before we headed out to Mozambique. Within hours of landing in Portugal, we got our first hit of the fact that our language teacher became sick, and then we had no language teacher. So the only reason we were in Portugal, the only thing we had to do was then kind of put on hold, so we were left with nothing to do. So after a bit of time and asking around, we managed to find a local who was a friend of our house owner, who was willing to give it a go at teaching us. He's had some experience in the past, but a lot older now. He was willing to give it a go, and we throughout our time we had lessons with him, and we learned some of the basics of Portuguese, just a bit to give us before we head to Mozambique. Unfortunately, with him, things weren't so guaranteed. We ended up having about 50% of our expected lessons, because either he'd turn up, or most of the lessons he'd either turn up late or he wouldn't turn up at all. But we managed to get some basics down, and being in Morale, where very like deep set away from tourism, no one really spoke English, which meant it was a steep learning curve, because no one's going to speak a bit of English to you. Like, you had to step up and really learn the Portuguese there. It was a good learning experience.
Yeah, so another thing that we came across were obviously flights, which seemed to never go right for us. So the first flight from the UK to Portugal was all right. It was probably the only flight that went smoothly for us. But then flights from Portugal to Mozambique didn't go to plan. So we had to delay a lot of our flights due to visas not being sorted, and that was just a load of hassle. The amount of times I was on the phone to David Duncan, it gave me a headache, but we became best friends out of it. But no, we then ended up going to the airport on the day we expected to fly, and then we were told that we couldn't fly because our flights had been cancelled and because our visas weren't as long as the date we were supposed to fly back. So we went to the airport, which was about a 2-hour drive from where we were staying, all happy and excited to get on this plane, and it didn't happen. So we ended up touring Lisbon to try and find a place to stay for the night, to then be able to get on the flights booked for the next day, which thankfully worked out. We got on the plane and we did eventually make it to Mozambique.
A big part of being in Portugal was definitely our visa process. I feel like half our time overseas was a visa process, but especially in Portugal, it was, I feel like, a very difficult time. We had to drive to Lisbon more times than I can count. A lot of forms to fill out. And the hardest thing was not mentally knowing whether, when, or if you would ever pick up your visa, and not being told anything and not being kept in the loop just because that's how they did it. It was quite a hard thing, but I think God taught us patience in it all.
So while we were in Portugal, another thing that we did to pass time and to try and get involved with some of the locals was we attended a Bible study, which our supervisors in Portugal led. So just a bit of a backstory. In Morao, there was only one church, and it was a Catholic church. So we would have to attend mass every Sunday. So as a team, I don't think we didn't really get much from it because it was all Portuguese, and we didn't understand the layout of each service, because obviously we don't attend Catholic churches. So that was quite hard. But yeah, so attending the Bible studies were nice. They were in Portuguese as well, but our supervisors speak English, so we would have it translated to us as well in English, and it helped us learn some Portuguese. We were able to speak to some of the locals in the very small amount of Portuguese that we did know, and we just got to build friendships with them. So yeah, and another thing I remember a lot from it was lots of cake and different foods. They loved bringing cake to anything that we did in Portugal. Cake was a very big part of them. We would just sit there at the end having like a slice of every single cake that was there and just absolutely loving it. So yeah, it was fun. We enjoyed. I think we all enjoyed those Bible studies. Also, they were very late, so they started at 9 p.m, which shocked us all quite a bit. And sometimes we would be there until like 11:30. But it was something to do, and we enjoyed it. It was good fun. Lots of fun.
Yeah, another aspect of being in Portugal, we had to be looked after somehow. So we had supervisors who were the lovely Mike and Davine Wilson, who are ex-BMS workers that spent 25 odd years in Brazil, now working for ECM, which is a European mission organization. They have spent 2 years living in Portugal and living in Morale. They have a wonderful little converted farm house, and they've spent time working on the house and getting to building relationships with the locals and kind of just building a relationship and being in charge and organizing those local Bible studies. Mike and Tavine did a wonderful job of just looking after us. They made sure that when we arrived, they drove us, they transported us everywhere, and they made sure that we could get to the shops. They got us a house to stay in, and they were patient with us despite us all being a bit on edge, not knowing why we're here, what we're doing, and when we're leaving. They stuck with us and would constantly sort everything out. And through that, they would made sure we had things to do despite not much involvement with zero projects. They took us on adventures. They showed us around Portugal. They really showed us the culture, and they did it well, have an aspect that they were getting to know the culture, but they knew it really well, and they kind of knew where we were coming from. And through all of this, they just helped massively with us getting our visas and just making sure we got the right place when we needed it. Yeah, they were wonderful.
So another thing that we did whilst in Portugal was we went to, I don't know how to say it, Coimbra?
Coimbra, yeah.
Coimbra, yeah. So Mike and Davine actually had a meeting over there that they needed to go to. And again, this was another long journey for us. I think it was meant to be like 2 or 3 hours long, and it ended up taking us about, I don't even know how long, like 10 hours.
Yeah.
Like it took a crazy amount of time to get there because we just stopped off at so many different places. But no, it was all part of the experience. Huh?
The car broke down.
Yeah, and the car broke down, which was interesting. But no, we went there and we ended up staying at a couple's house. I can't remember if they have any association with BMS or not, but they were some of Mike and Davine's friends, and they were lovely, and they took us in for the night, and we ended up going on a rather long walk the next day, just trying to keep ourselves entertained while Mike and Davine were in their meeting. And yeah, it was quite interesting, good for team building, I think. But yeah.
One other thing that was kind of random, but still fun, was that in the first week of being there in Portugal, we got invited to a 1-year-old birthday party. We didn't know the family, I don't think. We didn't know anyone there except from our supervisors. It was a laugh. We managed to speak to people. They were so lovely and welcoming to us. We had lots of food, which Joel later regretted the next evening. He was kind of a bit sick. But it was really fun just seeing how other people celebrate birthdays, and just getting to be there and say hello and what we're doing.
So my highlight from Portugal, in the short time we had there, was definitely going to the lake. We went there most evenings on our bikes, and we would just put on some worship music, and we'd be together, but we kind of just do our own thing. So I would read my Bible and do some drawing, and yeah, it was just really good fun, and definitely one of the main memories I have from Portugal. And the challenge that I had while I was there was just being in a place of uncertainty all of the time, just not knowing what was ever going to happen, like not knowing what was happening the next day, not knowing what's happening with Jesus. But it definitely taught me a lot of patience, just to be patient and to trust in God's hand, just know that it's all in His hands.
Yeah, my highlight would have to be the various road trips and adventures we went on, and that being the lake as well. I even my top highlight of Portugal was doing an impromptu dusk swim in my boxes in the lake, which was quite fun. My challenge would probably be our lack of involvement with anything. Kind of when language fell through, that left us with almost nothing to do. in a sense, you couldn't initially see any purpose of being there. So that made it hard to just find a reason to wake up and get out of bed.
A highlight for me, I think, would be all the cafes that we ended up visiting. I think we nearly went to one each and every day to try and fill the time. But we always used to just go get a drink, get the cards out, play some cards. And yeah, it was just a nice way to spend some time as a team, get out of the house and fill our time a bit. But a challenging point, I think, would be the Catholic Church. Going to Portuguese mass every single week, sometimes more than once a week, it was very difficult, especially because we didn't understand. We were very new to the language, so we weren't as developed in it, and it was just, yeah, it was a struggle.
A highlight from having so much free time was the random trips we went on, us four and with our supervisors. They said we're going to Spain for a day, and I was like, oh, cool, we'll do that. That was always fun, and seeing new places, it's always great. The problem with so much free time is just when you have too much of it, you don't know what to do. It can feel like a lack of purpose, which was sometimes quite hard. But yeah, it was great to be able to see all these things.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna like use George's point because it's an impromptu little thing, but I think having the time in Portugal where we had so much free time definitely has like played us to now with the whole isolation situation. But yeah, I think it's definitely helped having that previous experience for our time now. And I think as a team, we just using our time while we're at home. But yeah, so we eventually got to Mozambique in the end, which was very fun and exciting for us. So the one of the projects that we got involved with in Mozambique was a school. It was actually a private school, so we were involved with it because the man who owned it was one of our links while we were in Mozambique. He was a really lovely family. So we helped out in the school about 3 times a week, I think it was, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the first few weeks that we arrived in November, December time, we went into different classrooms. We didn't really have a schedule. We just found classrooms that we could like fit in and just kind of get a gist of what was going on and what we could do to help. At the beginning, one of the classrooms that Alana and I were in, we got taken out and asked to teach. So initially we said that, okay, it's not what we're used to, but we don't mind doing it together. But then we were told that 2 classrooms didn't have teachers, and we had 5 minutes to prepare like 2-hour lesson. And I didn't really know what to do. We kind of just sat there looking at each other like, I can't do this. So we just had a really rough plan. Definitely not a good enough plan for 2 hours, but it was our first time. We didn't know what to do. And yeah, we just went into our classrooms on our own, and somehow we managed to entertain a classroom for 2 hours. Yes, it meant that kids were running around, and we ended up just playing games with them. But it was, yeah, it didn't really happen many more times. We tried to make it clear that we weren't teachers, and that wasn't what we had come to do. But that was quite hard. Yeah, definitely threw us in the deep end for that. But after Christmas, we went about a month of going into different classrooms again. We had a schedule this time of different classrooms that we would go into to help with. But a lot of the time it just consisted of us like in pairs, sitting in the back of classrooms, which we just feel like we were being used to the best extent that we could. So after a few meetings with our supervisors in Mozambique and just chatting to some of the teachers and the principal in the school, we managed to have a classroom that we could stay in for the rest of our time there. So we felt like we were most useful and we could help out the most in grades 0, 0 and grade 0, which is nursery reception. So Alana and I were in grade 0, 0, so nursery, and George and Joel were in the reception classroom, which was assumed there were a lot more kids in there than ours. So yeah, so for the 3 days that we were in school, we would teach them speaking English for one of the lessons, and then for the other 2 days that we were there, we would teach them maths. So we did lots of different numbers and counting activities with them. We would play lots of games. We taught them the hokey pokey, which they absolutely love. Yeah, so although it didn't start out amazingly and didn't go really smoothly in the school, we definitely felt our place at the end, and we absolutely loved going in and being able to spend time with kids, sing songs with them, and just work with them and be able to make those memories with them. So definitely paid off in the end.
Yeah, another one of our involvements was with a organization called Masana, which is a charity that aims to reintegrate young boys who have run away from home and that are living on the streets, and it aims to like put them back in their homes and back in their families. Before Christmas, our involvement with them, we would go kind of on an outreach down to one of the local beaches. They'd take some food, some drink. We'd play a bit of football on the beach or do some games and have a little devotion and kind of support in that way. And then after Christmas, towards the end of our time, we would then spend 2 mornings a week going to the Masana House, which is a place where the boys come for a bit of food, to wash their clothes, to have a shower, and a little devotions and some games as well. And we would just play there, and we would just help out by being a presence there and just doing what we could to help. Although we didn't feel like we could do that much, we trusted that God is using us even when we don't understand how.
Yeah, so another thing that we got involved with was the youth group at the International English Speaking Church. One of my favourites whilst being away, as everyone knows. But yeah, so every Friday evening we would go to this church and basically just lead the youth group. It was really inspiring when we were there because a lot of their parents and the youth themselves were coming up to us saying how they were so encouraged by us and they really appreciated us being there, which was really nice to hear. But yeah, it was the youth worker that they have there was a bit off and on, I'd say. Wasn't great, but he did what he could. So we tried to get him a bit more involved and help him out a bit. And hopefully they're doing fine still. But yeah.
The churches we was involved with 2. One was called Fellow Realio. I have to say it like that, otherwise I won't be able to say it properly. That was a traditional Mozambican church, Portuguese speaking. Yeah, it was a really different experience to see how they worship God, and it was really cool and eye-opening to see there's no right or wrong way. We had translators most Sundays, which was so helpful and so kind of them to offer that service to us. It was a very hot building, especially one Sunday morning. Me and Joel must have been dripping, and it's just so hot. On Saturday evenings, we went there to get involved with the Bible study with the youth as well, which was great to form new relationships with them as well. The other church we went to was called New Life, which was the International Speaking Church, English Speaking Church. That was really nice as well to have some familiarity and kind of feel like you're at home because you can hear an English service, which was really nice. Yeah, and like Alana said, we went to Youth Speak on Fridays there, which was always lovely.
It was a project kind of, but basically we went to a children's centre called Sakaleka in Masia for about a week and a half in January because with the school system in Mozambique, their Christmas holidays, their summer holidays as well, because the summer is our so in the month of January we didn't really have much to do, so we basically have planned for this children's centre called Sakaleka in Masia, and I absolutely loved it there. It's my highlight of my time overseas. it's a children's centre for kids who either don't have both their parents or any parent at all. They can go to this centre all year round, and it's like a school in term time for them, so they can be educated as well as being looked after and fed. And yeah, it's really place. It's a Christian place as well, so they learn about God through Jesus. So yeah, we went there to help out while we were there. It was more of a holiday Christmas club. So Alana and I held sessions with lots of different craft activities. I think we did Noah's Ark and colouring rainbows and prayer chains, which was really fun. And it was really nice to see the kids just explore creativity and just see the way that their minds work through that was nice. And while we did that, George and Joel would teach some guitar to the kids that wanted to learn. And yeah, that went really well. Some of the kids picked it up really well, and they were able to translate what they had learned in Portuguese to the other children. So yeah, it was a Portuguese speaking place as well. So language was quite tough for us because we had just spent about probably 4 weeks speaking just English to each other and another BMS worker that had come to us, and we spent a week in South Africa as well. So it was definitely being thrown into fully Portuguese speaking again and having no translators really there. But we made it work. Yeah, we made lots of different friends there with the workers, and we built friendships with the kids as well, which was really nice. Lots of Google Translate, but still part of the fun. I personally got to work alongside a lady there who sewed. I made an apron for one of the workers, which was really cool. So yeah, the centre really adapted to our skills and what we enjoy doing. So George and Joel got to do like photography and teaching music. Alana got to film a video for them, and I got to do sewing. It was just really fun. Yeah, we also got to paint a mural on one of the walls, which was really nice. So they had like a little memory of us there. So yeah, the kids there were absolutely amazing. They brought laughs to us every single day. Their characters just absolutely shone through. They were so fun. And yeah, it was just really nice being able to work with them and build those relationships and see them every single day. Yeah, we got to experience a lot of different local foods while we were there, because it was kind of, Maputo is the capital city, and it was north of Maputo, and it was kind of in the more rural area, lots of sandy lanes and things around. We got to have a lot of the local foods while we were there, because they cooked for us. So lots of rice and beans, just like full-on fish plopped on the plate, and a nice peanut dish, which George really enjoyed. Yeah, so it was really fun being able to just try all of these different foods. And one evening I remember as well, which was really nice, was when we went out for pork for a meal at kind of street side restaurant cafe shack sort of thing. And yeah, it was just really good fun, good laugh, especially when Alana poured ketchup, which was hot sauce all over her food. Absolutely
It
amazing.
literally said ketchup on it though.
Yeah, so yeah, Masia was really good. I think we all really enjoyed it, and it holds a lot of memories there. So.
Yeah, another big aspect of Mozambique was food. We had to eat food to stay alive. So luckily there in Maputo, it's quite developed, and next to South Africa, most of the supermarkets have what you could get in the UK, if not a similar alternative, maybe with just like not 20 different types of pasta, just 5 different types. But the top thing about Mozambique's food, especially coming from South Africa, was Fanta pineapple and fruit chutney knickknacks. However, outside of the supermarkets, on most street sides, you could get fresh fruit and veg, which sometimes would often do. I'll run out of pepper, go down, quickly grab a pepper for a couple pennies. It was quite convenient, and you could get most fruit and veg on the street. bread as well is a huge part of Mozambican culture. Simple, easy, cheap, and we all loved the fact that you could get like a foot-long baton for about 12p, and it was filling, and you just put whatever you want in it. Eggs, a thing called bhajias, spaghetti. It worked really well. And bhajias are another one of our favorite kind of local cuisines. It's sort of like a small fried nugget-sized kind of maize and beans mixed up, and it just oily, fatty, but oh, it tastes so good, and especially in bread, absolutely delicious. Yeah.
So another thing that we got up to whilst in Mozambique was a wedding and a funeral. We actually experienced both. So the wedding was strange, I think, slightly different to a wedding back here in the UK. But no, George decided to walk down the aisle before the bride because he thought it'd be a good idea to quickly go to the toilet. And as he came out, the bride was ready to walk down the aisle, but he made it there before her. So that was quite funny to see. No, but the bridesmaids and the best men, they didn't actually come to the wedding until after the service had finished. So in Mozambique, it's all the Africa timings and stuff. So it didn't surprise us that much, but we were just a bit like, oh, okay. But yeah, so that was a bit strange. And then the funeral as well is quite different to one back here. Very big. They have hundreds and hundreds of people there celebrating the life of this person, and it's a lot of wailing and crying, and yeah, it was quite an emotional time. But then we went to the beach afterwards to celebrate, so that was fun. But yeah.
During the beginning of January, we went to South Africa for Youth Week, which was much different to what we imagined. It's very intense. There was only one day off for the whole week where we had free time. Us four stood out for being the only British and only white people there, which was kind of a shock. So we kind of got singled out to take part in every activity, which was quite tiring from time to time. It was very sporty as well, which I quite liked, but yeah, maybe not everyone picked that. It was lovely meeting though people from all across South Africa, from Botswana, from Zimbabwe, South Africa. It was really nice to meet everyone. Yeah, it was just a nice time to see how other people worship as well. And the worship there was really good and fun. That was twice. Once in the morning, once in the evening, a bit like Soul Survivor in the UK. Just worship was a bit more African, a bit more crazy. Yeah, it was a challenging but also fun experience.
So while we were overseas, we spoke about our supervisors that we had in Portugal. We also had supervisors in Mozambique. However, they do not like being called supervisors. They are our fellow BMS group friends. Their names are Mark, Susanna, and Deb. They live in Mozambique. They've lived there for about 2 years in Kutu. Yeah, they've been working with BMS for a good few years now. Going back, they lived in Uganda a few years ago, and then they took a break, and now they're living in Maputo. Yeah, so Mark is a lawyer, and he works with one of you will have to remind me of the name.
Hamak.
Amak, was it? Amak.
Yeah, Amak.
Yeah, that works with that company out in Mozambique. And Susanna has a sewing business which she encourages ladies from who have less fortunate backgrounds. She teaches them and encourages them to start up their own business selling different ranges of things, from clothes to cling film substitutes, to try and reduce the plastic waste in Mozambique, because the litter and the rubbish is just everywhere there, all over. So yeah, it's a really good business actually set up, and it was successful. So we got to help out with that at different times. So Mark and Susanna helped us a lot in Mozambique. They got us into the area, showed us around for a short amount of time we did have. They showed us all of our different projects and introduced us all of the different people that we need to get alongside. Unfortunately, at the beginning, we only had about 2 weeks with them because they were going back to the UK for Christmas with their other children. So we didn't have as much time as we were expecting to have with them at the beginning, but even when they were thousands and thousands of miles away, they were still just at the end of the phone if we needed help with absolutely anything. So that was really nice of them. Yeah, they were just always there when we needed help with different situations, no matter how big or small they were. So yeah, when they came back in January, we would have lots of meals with them. We would go to their house for dinner. They would come to ours for and we would have lots of games nights, which was really fun. Just being able to chill and speak English and just have like a British night, which we were used to, which was nice. And yeah, one of the main things that we did a lot on the weekends as well was go swimming at Lizzie's school swimming pool, which was really fun. We all really enjoyed that, especially when it was about 36 degrees. It was really nice to cool off and just do different things, like have underwater disco parties with Alana's phone playing music. And yeah, just playing different things like water polo. It was just really good fun being able to have that chill time on the weekend, which was nice. But yeah, lots of different memories made with them. They helped us so much, and we're looking forward to seeing them again soon, hopefully when things go back to normal and they come back to the UK in the future. So
Yeah, so we had our visa problems in Portugal. So when we got into Mozambique, of course that didn't stop, and we continued to have visa problems. As we struggled to even get into Mozambique, it meant that we entered on a 30-day visa, which was going to end fairly quickly after being there. So once we arrived, there was no time to waste in trying to get an extension, and we spent most of our December, quite a few days in December, going to immigration to firstly apply for an application and then get that sorted and hand in the right documents. And then after that, it was waiting and then trying to collect our visas. And it was very difficult when you go and they go, come back tomorrow, or they eventually go, come back, but with this document that we didn't tell you about before, but for no reason, but you need this document to get it. So you find this random document, bring it, and so on and so on. We spent a lot of time just trying to get an extension of our visa and trying not to pay bribes, and especially when they tried charging me double the price for my visa, we were like, whoa. But luckily we had Jane down, who lives further up, who is a BMS lawyer with AMAC as well, who works further up in Mozambique. She came down and spent some time with us at Christmas, and she did a wonderful job of just getting to know this, just being able to speak great Portuguese and managing to get our visas. Jane and I, in fact, actually spent 4 hours on Christmas Eve running around Maputo trying to get certain letters from religious affairs and the Mozambique Baptist Convention to try and get our visas. And well, it's the best Christmas Eve I've ever had in Mozambique. But yeah, but eventually we did get our visas sorted, and we got a 6-month visa, which we really did only use for about 3 months because came home short, but that's all we could get. I actually counted in total. I personally went to the immigration office 13 times.
Yeah, so another thing about Mozambique is the weather. So on all of these immigration trips, it was nice and warm, sometimes a bit too warm. So I think we only ever had one day that was below 20 degrees, and that was still at 18 degrees. So yeah, that was one day the whole time in Mozambique, and the rest of the time it was usually high 30s, sometimes even 40s, and that's when it got too much. That even when you sat there, you were just dripping with sweat, which is probably too much information, but it was reality for us, especially when walking either to and from projects or to immigration and back. even just sitting in immigration or at church, it was a lot to handle. But yeah.
We also had language lessons every Monday to Thursday with a lovely man called Boos. We all got along with him, and he was such a good teacher, and he had a lot of patience with us, and he was just a really good guy. I found language quite difficult. I think out of all us, Joel probably got to grips with the best of it. And he was quite our saviour when he was trying to speak to someone in Portuguese, and he was going, what? Because Mozambique they speak Portuguese. It wasn't too much of an issue because school was English speaking. They were told you have to speak English. With Masana, some of the leaders there spoke English, and most of the boys didn't speak Portuguese. They spoke the local language. Youth Week or Youth Fridays, that was all English speaking. It was just pre-church on Sundays at Fellow Viario, but that translates is there, so it would have made it a bit easier being able to speak fluent Portuguese, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, so when we were in Mozambique, we also had our team holiday. So that was quite exciting, quite stressful to plan. Again, nothing went straightforward, but we got there in the end, and we ended up traveling from Maputo to South Africa, which was crossing the border multiple times, which was scary, but we made it through, and Emily didn't get stuck there this time. But we went to, where did we start off? We started off at Kruger Park, so quite a well-known safari park. It was quite a crazy experience, I think. We stayed in a place called Marloff Park, and it was actually our own little house, but with all the animals. So we had like ostriches in our garden. I don't know what else we had. We saw like warhogs, yeah. We had like and if we left our house, there were just like zebras and giraffes, and like we were just surrounded by the animals. And then we had a sunrise tour, which was a last minute plan, but definitely worth it. We got quite close to like lions and all of that lot, which was scary, but they didn't come after us, so it's all right. But then we also did just a self-drive tour with our friend who we met overseas called Honey, and she saved us quite a bit with getting us to South Africa, which was really helpful. But then, so we stayed there for a few days, and then after that we went to a place called Nelspruit, where we stayed in a fancy hotel, which I didn't expect to be that fancy, but that's where action teamers stay. We did so many things there, it was crazy. My first time ice skating was in South Africa. That was an experience. Why did we went there for the Blythe River Canyon. So we had a day tour with a lovely man called Dave. It was an eventful day, and it was a tough day, but we got through it, and it was just amazing to see all of these different things. Like we saw God's window, we saw potholes, we saw loads of different things, waterfalls. It was a crazy experience. But yeah, so we stayed there for a few days, and then came back to our reality in Maputo. Yeah.
So for the goodbyes, it was quite rushed due to the current pandemic we're going through. It was very strange and surreal to finally say goodbye to people. At times we felt like we would never leave. And it was sad to say goodbye to especially our language teacher and the youth week and the kids at the school. It was also very strange that we planned out how to say goodbye and when we'll do it and what we'll do. And then to realise, oh, we're going home in 2 days, we've got to say goodbye tomorrow. It was a very rush. We had to do all our goodbyes in one day. But yeah, it was a strange time, but it was nice to round it all off, and yeah, it was a good time.
So the goodbyes leads to our journey home. If it's never been straightforward for us catching flights, like Lana said previously. So we ended up coming home a week early, like George said, and we thought that everything would go smoothly. I don't know why we thought that, because nothing ever does for Mozambique's travel plans. So our flight, so when we got to Maputo airport at 5 in the morning, we got our boarding passes, we sent our luggage off, and we were saying our goodbyes to our supervisors, and we were having a picture. Once we had that picture, Joel looked down at the boarding pass and he went, wait, we're not boarding our flight from Portugal to London until 3 o'clock, but we'll still be on our flight at 3 o'clock. It was 3 o'clock the next day. The woman who gave us our boarding passes didn't tell us that our flight had been cancelled from Portugal to London that evening. So we found out at 5 in the morning that we had a 22-hour layover in Lisbon airport, which was going to be an adventure. So it was 5 in the morning for us, but as some of you might know, it would have been 3 in the morning at home, and each one of us had to contact our families to tell them not to go to Heathrow Airport that evening because we won't be there, because we won't be getting our flight there. So thankfully, I think we all managed to get hold of our parents and tell them the news. So that was exciting. So we went through security, we checked in and everything, and it was all fine. And we got on our flight to Lisbon. So it was a 10-hour flight, went absolutely fine. I found it went quite fast. It was just a bit weird being on a plane with people wearing like gloves and masks and everything like that. But other than that, it was completely fine. And we landed in Lisbon. We had no luggage. We had what we were wearing and what was in our carry-on. So a tip, always take spare clothes in your carry-on, always. And yeah, so we went and got some dinner because we were all quite hungry. We had Burger King, and while we were eating our dinner, we were watching the news, and it came on. Everyone in Lisbon Airport was saying that the president was coming on at 8 p.m. explaining whether all flights from Lisbon Airport were going to be cancelled. So we just sat there listening to Portuguese on the TV, not really understanding what was going on, wondering whether we were actually going to get home or not. But thankfully, the flight to Heathrow never ended up getting cancelled, which is good. But yeah, so we just queued up in a line and made sure that the airline wasn't going to cancel our flight. We found a little area to stay for the night, and we had 22 hours in Lisbon Airport. We slept on the floor. Thankfully, we had blankets and pillows given to us on flight that we had just been on, so we had those, but it was so cold. We went even through security in the airport because we had to come out in order to be able to go back through to get our next flight, and they wouldn't let us through until the next day. So yeah, thankfully God was definitely with us, and we didn't get kicked out by the police who were patrolling the whole time. But yeah, it was lots of food, lots of walking around the airport trying to entertain ourselves. I personally felt like it went quite fast, considering it was spent almost a whole day in an airport. And when we finally got to board that plane, none of us quite believed that we were going to be back home until we were in the air. And then we finally landed in Heathrow. We had a little prayer time and said our goodbyes to each other, which was really nice. And then we went through and we saw our families again for the first time in 6 months, it's a nice memory to look back on. So yeah, now we're all finally home, and we actually got here in the end.
Yeah, drawing from our time, one of my highlights would have to be fixing the apartment. There was a period of 2 weeks where a lot of things broke in our apartment: windows, toilet seats, shower heads, ovens, gas ran out, stuff like that, and just had a good fun time doing a bit of DIY and fixing it. I just really enjoyed that. It was my element for a couple of weeks.
I'd say my highlight, I've got so many highlights from it, but one of them definitely has to be Christmas. It was a very different Christmas. I'm usually running around the house screaming Christmas songs. I wasn't doing that this year, well I was, but just in Mozambique. So yeah, it was a very different Christmas, as it was warm, because it was actually their summertime over there, because their seasons are like flipped to ours. Yeah, so it was a very different one to remember.
A highlight from mine, which is hard to choose with so many, but one that stands out was having the opportunity to lead worship at on the youth groups on Friday night. Yeah, and just offering up my service, and it was just fun to have that opportunity.
My highlight was Messiah, like I said before. I have spoken a lot about that already. So another one of my highlights was my birthday overseas. I was the only one in the team who had a birthday overseas, and yeah, it was really fun being able to celebrate with these guys. They spoilt me, and I got a nice breakfast in the morning made by Alana and the boys. And yeah, it was just really weird having a birthday in January and it being really warm. So that was something for me to experience that I'd never experienced before, which was really nice. So yeah, those are my highlights.
Yeah. So we just want to thank you all so much for just supporting us over the past however many months it's been, and it's all been so crazy. And we just thank you for keeping us in your prayers, and we just really appreciate that. We thank you for listening to us today. We're glad that we've been able to share some of our experience with you. I know it may have been a bit long, but yeah, this is the only way we can do it right now, and hopefully sometime in the near future we'll be able to all be together and share with each of our churches, which will be nice. So yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.